Hello everyone. In this course, I will be giving you in-depth things that we do in development using Spring Boot from starting like Hibernate related things from going to using Lombok, REST controllers, exception handling, many more things using Spring Security also. So we will be going step by step. For starting, you can create your Spring Boot project using Spring initializers. You can go to this URL and you can select Maven here. Version should be 3.0, language should be Java, and the Java version will be 17. And one thing you should know, recently it is released version of Spring Boot, so there will be few changes which are available on the internet are prior to this version. Now, because Hibernate 6, Spring 6 is new version of Spring and Hibernate is released, so Spring Boot version is also updated. So you can generate your zip and extract it and use it. I have already created a template. Let's go inside our template. Let me show you some things here. As you can see, I have created the database settings. Here, the database name is given here, YouTube, the URL for it, and my password for connecting to my MySQL server. And the port on which this application will be running is 8083. And these two properties I will take it later in this video. And let's first create our employee entity class. Let me tell you one thing. What is an entity? Suppose there is one employee table inside your MySQL database. Now for executing queries, previously people used to write, and now also people also used to write for that was JDBC queries. In Spring Boot you can use this using JDBC template, but for that we will not be using, we are using Hibernate in this. So let me show you the pom.xml. Here you can see the dependencies, Spring test for JUnit testing, MySQL connector for my connecting to the MySQL, web for web related dependencies, and this is for Hibernate. And how you can add these dependencies is here. Come here, add these dependencies like type web and select web, and come here like MySQL. So like this you can add it and generate your zip. Let's go to back to this. The version here we are using is Java 17. Okay. And now let's what now suppose I need to make this class as an entity. And what is an entity? An entity class is a class in which all the properties of it are the columns of a table, like column of if there is first name here, then first name will be the column name inside the MySQL table. And if you change in this object, and if you modify this object and save it to the database, then the row that was actually present inside my MySQL object will also be updated. So in common or layman terms, this means is if you make a change in this employee object, then it will change in the database table. So that means your employee object is a row of a database table, employee table. So let's start by marking creating its properties. I have also already written down those properties. So let me take these properties from here. These are the some properties that I need to give to my employee table. So what we are having is a unique identifier, first name, second name, email, city. All these are some basic properties. So now let's create the constructor and getter setters for it. So for creating, you can use generate. But if you are using IntelliJ, you should know the proper commands, shortcut commands. So let's use Alt Insert for generating constructor. Control A for creating a all argument constructor. Now it is created the all argument constructor. Now we will create a no args constructor. Select none. Now we will create the getter setters. Alt Insert. Now select Control A. All getter setters are created. So now you can see this is a plain POJO object, plain old Java object. Why? This is a normal class having private properties, so it cannot be accessed directly. But if you want to access it, you can use it through getters and setters. This is a POJO object. But now how should I make this as an entity class? By using at entity annotation here. And one more thing, this recent version of Spring Boot, here you are using this at entity annotation. Here you can see in on the internet, if you look for any example, any Spring Boot related thing, it will show you the package structure as Java X for this entity. Why? Prior to this version, we were using anything related to Hibernate was Java X package name. But in 3, Spring Boot 3.0, they have changed the package structure to Jakarta. So remember this change. So here you can give add table also. Inside this add table, you can give name like what should be the name of your database table. Here you can customize it on your own add table. So now this looks like a database table. We can also use here the like add column annotation, but that is okay because by default it will take the default names for all the columns. In later videos, if you want, when I will perform the validations, I will show you add column through add column also. But here your database table is okay, getters and setters. Now we will create one repository. Repository by layman terms means the classes or interfaces which interacts with the database or performs the database related operations like inserting update. So in Spring Boot, it is easier to create do database related operations. What we will be using is JPA repository. Type JPA repository. Here you need to give your employee class and integer as an unique identifier, which was having ID. So there is one thing, Control Alt O is for unused imports. No unused import. Employee table is not there yet. Why it is showing? Alt enter import class. Yeah, now it looks good. So here one concept you should know, like for Spring Beans you should mark them as Spring Beans. So for repositories we will be using at repository annotation to mark it as a database related layer, so that Spring knows this is related to database related operations. Employee repository. This interface we will use to like do database related operations. We have created one employee table, an employee repository. So now I will use one hard-coded way to test this. Later we will be using testing these my operations for updating and creating the employee object using Postman also, which means we will be creating REST APIs, but that will be a later part. Implements. I'm showing you one more thing. Command line run. So here what you can do is it will create one run method, implement methods. Now what I will be doing here is at auto-wired annotation. We will update this project step by step. Don't worry, we will be using Lombok, exception handling, and many more things. Way to go. But from scratch, this looks good. Employee repository, employee repository. Okay. Now we will be creating an employee object. Employee is equal to new of employee dot set email, any email at gmail.com. Employee dot set city in New York. Employee dot set first name John. Employee dot set second name. Here I am setting the properties for an employee object. Wait. Employee dot set age employee dot set department IT. Okay, so this is your employee object, and we have set all the properties for it. Now we need to use employee repository. In Spring Boot, it is very easy to save this object. Dot save method, which will save the employee object. And how do you know, like, or how do you know, like, this employee repository is saving employee object only? Because you have already mentioned that this code is for saving the object, and here we have created and saved the object. Go back to employee repository. Here you have mentioned this interface will perform database related operation to employee entity class only. You have, so go to your employee. So that's how you know, like, why you are using dot save method and only employee is getting created. So let's go and let me show you on which port it will run. 8083, and my database name is YouTube. So let's go to the MySQL workbench. First of all, let's create our database. For ID purpose, I'm using MySQL workbench for MySQL and IntelliJ IDEA for Java development. So let's create this. As you can see, this is a whole like few queries. So if you want to run a selected query, you can do is select this icon for selected cursor, for selected running this query on which your cursor is placed. Now the database is created. Refresh this. YouTube is there. Let me show you the tables. No tables. Why? What it is showing? No database selected. So first you need to select the database. How you select the database is use command and after the database name. Now it is selected. Now let's show the tables. There are no tables present inside it currently. So let's go and run our Spring Boot application. So shortcut for running this is Shift F10. Now it is running. Look, there is one error came. Error creating bean class path com.learning.employee has no identifier at entity class. So this error means whenever you create your MySQL table using MySQL server or workbench, you don't need to mention, it is not necessary to create a primary key. As you know it, you can or you might not. So the table will be created. But when you are using Hibernate or Spring Data JPA, in that case, you need to have a primary key here. So for that, I will be marking this ID as primary key at ID notation, and generated value will be strategy is generation type dot auto. Let's select by default auto. Now let's rerun the project. Shift F10 for running this project again, because it forces you to create a like a unique identifier primary key for every entity class. So that's why you need to mention this. That's why I left it for you to see the error. Here you can see it has created my employee table having department, age, and here you can see we are inserting. And when you are using it, you will not know these logs. How I enable those logs is come back to the application.properties. These logs you can see logging level dot org dot hibernate dot sql is debug, and this descriptor dot sql is trace. So by using these properties, we will be able to see the queries being fired. Okay, so now let's verify it into our database. Now let's do show table. It will show you employee table. This sequence is for like the auto thing that we used, like for sequence generation for your primary key. The main table is employee table. So now let's see the table data. Let's start from employee, run this query. As you can see, we have successfully inserted one employee object. For starters, this much is okay. In next video, we will, like by video, we will increase the scope of this project. There are many things to come. So this is it in the first video of this series.